Pro, Caitlin.
My webinar pump up playlist.
About to say, is this the license approved webinar?
Everybody, thanks for joining. We're going to get started at just a few minutes past the hour. Thanks so much for joining us. We're looking forward to a good conversation. All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. Super excited to share with you all some tips and tricks for making the most of every review. Few housekeeping notes before we get started. This is a Zoom webinar, so as an audience member, you are muted, but if you have any questions, you can either drop those in the Q&A bar at the bottom. You'll see that. Those questions will come through just to Anna and I, and we'll have some time at the end to answer those. But also wanting this to be interactive, we're going to open up the chat. Right now, it's for, I think, almost everyone defaulted to send to host and panelists only. So if you'll open up the chat, flip that to everyone. That'll get us all connected, and to get us started a little warmed up, would love for everyone to share on a scale of maybe like 1 to 5 how do you feel you or your organization leverages review content, with 1 being not at all, we're curious about it, and 5 being like we're crushing it, write the case study about me next time. So drop that in the chat if you're here. That'll help us sort of shape the conversation, but I'm excited to dive in. My name is Caitlin Hess. I'm the Director of Customer Marketing here at G2. But I did the math yesterday. I've been collecting G2 reviews for almost 10 years now, which is insane to me. Was a 2-time customer before I jumped over. So talking about reviews is one of my favorite things. I'm not going to say it's my favorite thing. And I am joined by Anna Nile, our senior product manager here, or product marketing manager here. And we're excited to talk more about reviews.
Thank you, Caitlin. Yes, hello everyone. Welcome. We are very excited about this. I am currently in Atlanta, Georgia, so I'm getting some of the current hurricane storminess out there. And I was just telling Caitlin that I lost power for a brief moment about 5 minutes before we went on. So if everyone could send me all the positive vibes that we make it through, that would be amazing.
Yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed here. Awesome. Well, to jump into sort of what we're planning to cover today, we're going to start with a very high level how to build a comprehensive review gen strategy, how you can and should be thinking about that, and then sort of once that's up and running, how you can make your reviews work harder for you. So the theme of today is really like maximizing value. You've got some really great content if you're capturing reviews from your customers. How can we make sure we're maximizing the value there? And then ways to use your rankings and reports in your marketing materials. I love that drive actual dollar signs. So excited for that. And then we'll save a few minutes at the end for Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask those either in the chat or through the question bar there.
Caitlin, I also forgot, I can't believe we didn't do this at the beginning, to plug if you want to connect with us on LinkedIn, if you have any questions there or reach out to us via email, we'll also obviously share some supplementary content as well.
Awesome. And I'm just seeing here too, thank you, Andrew. Chat was disabled for all attendees. I thought this was just a quiet group here. So I think I turned that on for everyone. If someone could give me a chat, just so we know. Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Excited to dig in here. So in terms of diversifying your review collection strategy, sort of like 4 different ways I think you can think about this. The first is sort of the basics. So this is like what people typically think of when they think about capturing reviews. They're one-off point-in-time campaigns that you're sending out to a specific list of customers. I know a lot of people do these quarterly, especially just ahead of our review deadline for quarterly report season. These are great. I feel like these probably will never go away. But there's so much more you can be doing to be consistently capturing reviews. So the second one here is a set it and forget it motion. If you are a review growth customer of G2, we have some specific tools here for you where you can make this really easy. So we have integrations with Pendo and Delighted. We also have a custom API along with review collection widgets and a review us button that's super easy, like copy and paste HTML to put review asks throughout your customer touch points. So it could be on the login page of your website. It could be in a customer newsletter, or with the integrations in the API, these happen totally in app. So as a customer logs into your product, you can set different criteria for when this pops up, but it's an in-app review ask. So you're not having to do anything. Once you set it up, these just happen consistently. The third option here, we're seeing a lot of this right now, in-person review collection. So at events, at your user conferences, at community roundtables, things like that. Asking your customers for reviews while they're really highly engaged with you is a great sort of like cheat code to get a lot of reviews at once. I know we were set up at HubSpot's inbound conference. We also had a setup at Dreamforce, and we're capturing like thousands of reviews there for Salesforce and HubSpot. So another great way to capture reviews. And then the final one here is just across the life cycle. So thinking about where are those times in your customer journey where your customers are highly engaged with you, where you want to capture their feedback, where they're most likely to give you feedback. And so a few opportunities for review asks here. Right after implementation is a great one. At renewal or during a QBR, during webinars or events, you'll see an ask from us at the end of this webinar here. But another good time to ask your customers while they're thinking of you. After a support ticket closes, following an NPS or CSAT score, those in-product pop-ups on your sign-in screen through your partner networks, direct outreach from your team. in your email signature, in your customer community, or through your customer newsletter. So these are just sort of like my top ways that I've seen, and I've got some really good customer examples. Also, if you're at a point where you're looking to sort of build out what is my review gen strategy, earlier this year, we ran a reviews workshop where we went like really in depth on all of these things. So I know Erin said she'll drop the link to that here. Definitely check that out. Some really good, like, actionable tips. Apologies in advance. You'll have to hear my voice talking about reviews more, but it was a really great session. We had some really awesome questions there too. So definitely check that out. In terms of customer examples, I wanted to share a few that I've seen from our customers here at G2. So that top left, customer surveys and incentives. This is from one of our customers called Flowcast. They have this section in their newsletter every single month. And so they're capturing reviews every month and asking for feedback. Really great opportunity to connect with your customers when they're actively thinking of you. The one right below that is an embed in a chat bot on a customer event registration page. So as customers are visiting this page, a little pop-up in the corner through their chat bot says, hey, would you leave us a review? Click here. The top middle is, I think this is actually from Dreamforce last year, but they had a like exclusive hoodie you could only get. It actually had a little star on it. Only get the hoodie if you left them a review while you were on site. And they had this QR code here. This was a card that they put in all of the swag bags. They also had people walking around with paddles with the QR code on it, which I thought was such a cool idea. So people could leave those reviews. And then they had like a table set up with the hoodies, and you showed them your completed review and you got a hoodie. So really cool way to do that. The next one down is a in-app ask, but it was an event specific app. So it was at their user group conference. The event app had an ask for G2 review. Top right here, this was a direct mail campaign. So they sent their customers really nice speakers. And it was sort of like, as a bonus, leave us a review, get a $25 gift card. And then bottom right here, this is Postal on their login screen. As you log in, a little pop-up comes up. Would you be willing to leave us a G2 review? So these are just some of my favorite examples, but you can see people get creative and put these asks all over the place. And so once you sort of have your review engine running, how do you make the most of your reviews? And why is it important, right? So customer voice is key throughout the buyer's journey. If you're on this call, you probably know that. I know as a customer marketer, this really resonates with me personally, but it's not just about me as a marketer. Our buyers are telling us the same thing. So 31% in our most recent buyer behavior report said that review sites were the most consulted information source. So not just that they consulted them, but it was the most consulted information source as they were making a software buying decision. And 80% of those buyers said that they were using customer testimonials and customer voice at the beginning of their decision-making process. And 78% said they were using it toward the end of their decision-making process. So it's not something that you can just do for top of funnel or just bottom of funnel. People really want to see what your customers are saying about you at every stage of the buying journey, which makes reviews so important. And so when you're going through I don't want to say the trouble, that's not the right word, but when you're putting the effort into capturing the reviews, this is customer voice. It's a really great way to capture testimonials from your customers. One, in a place where your buyers are already going. We have 90 million annual visitors to G2 from a software buying perspective. So I always say, like, whether you're investing in the strategy or not, your buyers are probably looking there anyway. So it's really important to make sure that you're showing up well. Once you have those reviews, thinking about how you can use them, I think just sort of like doubles down on the effort and can really take all of this to the next level. So I'm excited to turn it over to Anna to sort of talk about some of those tools for using these reviews.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Caitlin. Yeah, it's obviously so important to include that voice of customer perspective. We all know that we might see an ad, but we really want to hear it from our peers and folks that are in a similar space. So I'll go over a couple of different tactics that you could literally implement today if you would like. This is one of my, I'm about to geek out so hard because it's one of my favorite G2 features. I wrote a nerdy LinkedIn post about this a couple weeks ago, but our reference pages is they're one of my favorite features that I feel like is kind of slept on. So I highly recommend trying this out. It's under, I believe, marketing content and my G2 reference pages. I like to think of these as like mini landing pages that are fully customizable and an extension of your brand, extension of your website, extension of your G2 profile. And what I love about these is you can kind of slice and dice these to cater to whatever persona that you are trying to reach. So for example, this one is particularly covering our G2's buyer intent offering, which we'll touch on that later. But essentially, you can customize these not only for, I mentioned persona, but obviously product line, the segment you're trying to reach, and you can pull in not only reviews, but also crowd quotes, reports, which we'll double click into seasonal reports here in a minute, and then fully customize it with your badge, custom CTAs, banners, imagery, all of that. So I love these. These are a great way to promote your company as a whole. Or again, I'm about to create a bunch of these based on our target persona. So we fully drink our own champagne over here. Caitlin spoke to it at the beginning. You're going to get a request from us asking for a review. So we fully are in this fight to continue to build brand awareness and that trust as well.
Yeah, and I was
Oh,
just going to double down, Anna, like as a customer marketer, I feel like you always get asked for those like purple squirrel stories. Like I need a specific customer in this region,
mhm.
in this industry, and I need an approved case study. And sometimes you have that story, a lot of times you don't, right? And when you're really investing in generating a lot of reviews, there's a good chance, like if you don't have a case study for it, you probably have some reviews. And so packaging those together into one of these reference pages, I have found is a good way to sort of like share something with the sales team that maybe isn't the case study they hoped for, but instead is like 5 to 10 customer proof points for that specific industry. So these are really
Absolutely.
powerful.
Yep. And I love how you said package. That's exactly right. Like, I love that you can curate different components. And then also to your point on the review piece of including that in here, to Caitlin's point of like, I have in this page, and we'll share the example, I have reviews from enterprise companies, mid-market, SMB. So you can really see the gamut of folks that use our buyer intent product. But for you, as a customer, maybe you only care about enterprise or mid-market, but it's nice that you can customize that and personalize it. And then crowd quotes. So you saw that featured on the reference page. And again, I kind of like that because it's packaged, it's bundled, it brings all of these pieces together, but you're able to pull out the pieces of the review of a certain review that are most important to you. So we always say there's no such thing as a bad review, but obviously if this is going on your website, if you're featuring this on an ad, we'll talk about that in a minute, you're going to want to showcase your higher rated reviews. So this is a good way to pull that based on role, industry, and what that rating looks like. And then lastly, we'll get into use cases a little bit more here in a minute, but you can utilize these in your social media campaign. But we also have, and we'll follow up with this with more visuals, but various widgets that you can embed the grid report as well as badges, and you're able to track those as well to see what that engagement looks like. All right. So where can you actually use these? And we're going to show customer examples, and then we'll also give some more examples of how you can utilize this, but just spitballing here because you can utilize them anywhere you want. But whether you are using a widget of ours, which could auto populate the reviews, the ratings, the grid report, whatever you would like. You can also manually do this. So again, drinking our own champagne, there's a ton of times, like actually, Caitlin, you and I collaborated on this in February. We did love letters from G2, and we literally were just like searching through our G2 reviews and surfacing those, and we pulled those into just some like organic social posts, and they did really well. But again, you can put them behind product pages, landing pages, paid social, organic, billboards, nurtures, trade show booths, blogs, literally wherever you want. Opportunities are endless. And I personally, I mean, actually the other day, Caitlin and Aaron, I don't know if y'all saw this, but KP posted from Inbound a G-Wagon, a matte black G-Wagon that was slick with G2 badges all over it. And I forget the company that did that, but I was like, I love the commitment. That's very cool. So yeah, no shortage of creativity there. I will also touch on couple of different ways that you can utilize this from a product perspective. But that's going to be more so just filtering based on the persona and then taking that information and feeding it back into your product team. And we also have other offerings, but I do want to go ahead and we'll dive into the examples. Awesome. So these are just, again, to double down, like I mentioned some of these. I love this one on the left from Typeform. And so these examples are great because they are combining like actual G2 reviews, but also the rankings. And then again, we'll get into more the rankings and reports of it all. But on this left, this is a sponsored post on Instagram, Typeform coming for Google Forms, which I do love Typeform. And then a sponsored post on LinkedIn. You'll see on the bottom right that they are utilizing our review widget to automatically pull in these reviews. And then additionally up top, the widget as well. So again, this is going to keep it up to date. And then this one at the top right is going to be a display ad utilizing both the review and the badge. So I just love how people get creative with whether they want to feature a review versus a badge versus a ranking. And a lot of times, why not all of them? Awesome. And then we can now talk through how you can actually use those various materials. So now we're going to shift gears slightly. Again, G2 reviews power the flywheel. The reviews are what power our market presence score and our satisfaction rating, and those power the reports and the rankings, and that fuels our buyer intent signal. So it's all related, but again, coming off the heels of our fall report release on Tuesday, we're going to kind of dive in a little more into how you can actually utilize those pieces of content and the value from those. So, and I always say double click. I feel like I've been hearing on TikTok and Instagram that that's like cringe, but it's what I want to say. Okay. Okay. So again, in case you missed it, thanks, Erin, my hype queen. In case you missed it, fall reports and badges, they just released this past Tuesday. I freaking love being on LinkedIn and seeing people just like lose their minds over like creating memes and creating GIFs and all of those fun things, videos. And again, Caitlin, you as a customer, like I'm sure you did like fun stuff with them too. And it's just really fun to see. But I will say, if you're having FOMO and you're like, how do I want a badge, which by the way, you can be a free user of G2 and have a badge. So if you have a profile that is not on one of our paid pages, don't have FOMO, you can still embed that, you can still utilize that. But in terms of winter reports, go ahead and start collecting those reviews. The deadline for the final review collection is November 19th. So you do have time. Our team is happy to help you collect those reviews. In fact, folks that utilize our team get 4 times the reviews to their profile. So definitely don't sleep on that. And yeah, go ahead and get going. We're happy to help you. And Caitlin covered so many awesome tactics up front of how you can do that. So
Yeah, and just wanted to underline, in case people are unsure, the way you get featured in a report, or the criteria for being featured in a report is you have to have at least 10 reviews for that category. So I've seen some customers who are like, I have 10 reviews. Why am I not in this report? But it has to be for that specific category. So that's why having sort of that comprehensive, always on, expansive review collection strategy is really important, especially when it comes to our reports and grids.
very good call out. And just to underline again, which that's a good departure from DoubleClick. 10 reviews, like to Caitlin's point, like I don't want to diminish the effort that could go into getting a review, because I know that like the end reviewer puts a lot of thought and they're very valuable. But 10 reviews, you can do it, and you have time, and we're here to help. And Caitlin just provided all of these awesome tactics. So really quickly, these are customer examples of actually featuring the badges or rankings. So we took a peek at what that looked like from just a general review perspective of including those. But here's where like some of the badges and rankings come in. And again, people get so creative. Like that middle GIF, I think, is from The Bear. I didn't watch that show, I'm embarrassed to say.
Yeah,
It?
I pulled this one. It's from The
I love
Bear.
it. I
Yeah.
love it. I'm not into pop culture, clearly. I'm just kidding. I love TV. I'm very on the internet, but I missed out on that one. I heard the first and second episode were stressful. Okay, I'll leave it at that. But I think that's so creative. And then of course we've seen several billboards, which you just love to see when you're driving by and you're like, oh, it's a G2 badge. And I heard there were a ton of those at Inbound and Dreamforce. So very cool. And then of course this presentation on the right, some more ads here showcasing those, and then just an email, a nurture, really easy to plug in. So yeah, you could get as extreme as creating, a custom GIF or paying for a billboard, but then you can also just incorporate it into your nurtures or your existing campaigns.
Yeah, and I also want to shout out the guy in the middle here. That's a Zoom background.
Oh, good call.
So one
Thank
of our
you.
CSMs was on with a customer and asked if she could grab a screenshot, because we loved seeing that in the background. Also, one other example, we'll have to figure out how to add it. A customer ran an ad on Bill Maher's podcast, and they shouted out that they were ranked #1 in their category on G2. So that was another fun way to see that.
I love it. And oh my gosh, I almost buried the lead. That bottom left one is Serena Williams. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of her. That's her software company. And that happened over the Olympics, and we were losing our mind. And oh my gosh, I'm glad that I saw that. That's what that example was. You made me think of it, Caitlin. I was like, when is that one going to come up? Love it. Okay. I'm almost done talking. So just quickly to touch on our different reports, and again, different ways to slice and dice this based on region, your segment, but our infamous grid. So you're likely very familiar with this, but you can license these reports, and these are going to include obviously category overview, the grid as you're seeing here, and then it's going to go into the different data points that were considered for this. And again, our grid is iconic. It's what a lot of people reference to make those decisions. So whether you're using the actual grid report or the grid widget, great way to showcase your position. And you don't have to be a leader every time. High performer or just even being on the grid is a win in and of itself. And then index reports. So these are awesome. They highlight specific things such as like usability, implementation, relationship, results. And it's going to output a score based on these various, the various category contenders. And then if you'll just go to the next one, I'll fly through this. And then momentum reports. So these are fascinating to me always, because whether you're like a new player in the space or your category is new and surging, it's always really cool to see these folks competing. So these are really exciting if you are, again, newer or just accelerating your position, and we highly recommend licensing these as well. So there's different ways that you can license these, and then again, the associated rankings and data points. All right, and then this is probably my favorite, compare reports. So you can go into G2 and create these on your own. If you're running into issues with that, work with your CSM, but these are great because kind of like a WYSIWYG in terms of you can select the different products that you want to do a side-by-side comparison on, and then you can choose what those criteria are. So again, obviously you're only going most likely to showcase where you're winning in a certain criteria. And so these are fabulous for running retargeting campaigns against competitors. Maybe we'll get to this in a minute, but like have a talk track or outreach from sales that you want to include this in. Run paid campaigns around it. So tons of different ways that you can surface these. Awesome. Okay, so there's 3 different ways I'd say, but we'll primarily focus on the marketing and sales piece. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we'll get to product in a different session, but these are really awesome for marketers, of course, because you kind of have your out of the box you have your out of the box content. So whether you have a content marketing team or not, you can kind of depend on these quarterly reports and know that you can use them. Maybe we spoke to the landing page example, but maybe it's gated. So it's helping you drive MQLs. Again, you can put it in those paid ad campaigns, run sales outreach, and then of course use all of this data across your website, different blogs. We've seen folks do press releases over these across social, so tons of different use cases on this one. All right, and then I kind of spoke to these, but getting into it, so using this for like just campaign planning. So again, maybe you do have a content marketing team, but if you don't, let's say you're the sole CMO or director of marketing, this is something that you can bake into your plans, and not just a one and done. You can take the report and again, use it across channels, use different bits and pieces of the report. I mentioned press release, homepage, social sharing. I kind of spoke to all of these, but I don't want to be too redundant here, but we've seen people get really creative, and we have plenty of like case studies and customer examples of how folks have done this in the past.
Awesome. And wanted to just spotlight a few examples of where we're seeing our customers do this. So you can see well, I guess I'm starting on the wrong end, but all the way to the right, that one there is a LinkedIn paid promoted post. We've seen these on Instagram. We've seen them on landing pages, registration pages. at in-person events is always really cool to see. And then in email signatures or part of nurture campaigns, things like that. It's the like third party validation, like in the buyer behavior report, unfortunately, we found that most people don't trust your marketing website anymore. They don't trust your salespeople. This is like true customer validated voice, saying, yeah, we're number one in the space, or we're the easiest to use or easiest to implement. So thinking about all of those places where your prospects might be, I think it's really kind of like a cheat code here. And then when you're thinking about sort of like each quarter, G2 releases our quarterly reports. And people always ask me, like, how can I get ready for those reports? What should I be thinking about? What do I have? And I think a really good way, or something you can steal here, is this quick checklist. So thinking about across marketing, sales, product, website, all of the places you might want to share this content. Anna mentioned this before. We see customers do press releases about their rankings. We've seen it on landing pages, home pages, across social, ad campaigns, blog posts, sales collateral, email nurture, infographic, like thinking about all of the places you could potentially put it. And thinking about that in advance too, is something that I think is sort of a best practice. A lot of times people will be like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known when these were coming. We do send I guess a full month before, a notification that if you've made one of the grids or one of the reports that it's coming. One of the questions here is, how do I know when those reports are coming out? We also have that published on our website, so we can drop the link to that in the chat as well. But making sure that you're thinking about like where all of the opportunities, again, like you did so much hard work to get the reviews. Let's make sure you're maximizing your use of them. Going to flip into Q&A here. So mentioned it in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to drop those in either the chat or to the Q&A box sort of at the bottom. We've got a couple here. The first one here is from Andrew. Is it possible to do a review campaign driven at a specific category to get more people to review our product in that category where we may be more competitive? The short answer is like yes and no, Andrew. So one example is actually our own. So Aaron and I are responsible for our own G2 review gen strategy at G2, again, drinking our own champagne. And we noticed we did not have very many enterprise buyer intent reviews, even though we had a lot of customers in our enterprise segment who were using buyer intent. And so we have like our always on strategy. If you are a customer, you might have seen it pop up in the back end of your product. We did a like reviews blitz is what I called it, with our enterprise CSMs. And so we ran a spiff for them, basically. The person who could get the most reviews from their customers in the quarter got a $500 gift card, and we had different tiers based on the number of reviews they could generate. One thing I'll say is like salespeople are very competitive. So we used our CSMs and AMs and like got, I think, 100 new reviews in a quarter from that specific segment. So if you have people who specifically work with those customers, I will say like your question, Andrew, is more about specific categories. If you know you have a segment of customers who are using a specific product, or who would say like, yes, I'm using your product for this use case, I would run a targeted campaign to that list specifically. You can also like put that in your ask. So as you're thinking about your email, you might say like, hey, first name, like, so glad to have you as a customer. We'd love to hear your feedback on how you're leveraging our product for whatever your category name is. On the G2 end, we will ask the question like, what are you using this product for? and it lists all of your categories. Every customer who comes can check multiple categories. A lot of people I see will say like, I do all, so they check all of them. But if you want to like ramp up in a specific category, I would think about like, who are those users, and then put that in the ask. So those are my sort of two pieces of advice. Anna, a question on reference pages.
Mhm.
Tanya says she loves them, which Tanya, so do I. I feel like it's the unsung feature that we have here at G2. She said, how are those typically used to drive traffic to them? Are there links, the reference pages, are the links to the reference pages housed on a website homepage, sent out via email, etc.? So Anna, how have you seen those used?
Great question. Various ways. So it is a link. So you could literally, it takes 5 minutes to create these. So you could literally spin that up and then share it on LinkedIn. You could hyperlink it in an email, anywhere you could link it. It will show up. And I believe you can customize the URL as well. If not, you could always use like a bit.ly if you wanted to kind of like white label it even more. But again, it's going to be completely customized and branded however you would like to. And then two other ideas. The third is kind of a subtle push for G2, but I would say you can also do like, I don't think you can download them as a PDF yet, but you could always do a screenshot. And then you could showcase kind of like at a glance, it would show everything. But I will say then you would kind of lose the ability to click through to reports, but you would still have that nice like faux landing page. So I would definitely recommend just the traditional using the URL. In terms of targeting, I know you didn't necessarily ask this, but I meant to speak to this earlier. With G2's intent or any intent source, you would be able, we'll stick with the G2 example, you would be able to see who those active buyers are searching your profile, your category, your competitors. And so let's say that you see that, that's a really good way to build a intent-driven strategy. And you could already have like a reference page on deck or a compare report on deck or whatever that might be. You see they're searching in your category or your competitor, whether they're a customer or a prospect, customer indicating pre-churn. And then you could go ahead and dive in there and have like almost like a nurture evergreen campaign ready to go. So not exactly what you asked, Tanya, but hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. And I know, Anna, you do a really great job too of like enabling our sales team directly. So they'll use those in one-to-one outreach, or I find that like people will often come to me and say, hey, do we have a case study for buyer intent at the enterprise level? And I usually say like, yeah, here are the ones I have, but also here's this reference page that Anna put together. So I think having sort of like an internal library can be helpful with those two.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we have other questions, but one last thing I'll say, just in terms of this whole theme, is going back to, it doesn't have to be so sophisticated as, you know, running this behind a display campaign using ICP, XYZ, and all of that, or even more traditionally, spending a ton of money on a billboard. Like, you could find a couple good reviews, solid reviews, and like post them on LinkedIn. You don't even have to stylize them the way Caitlin and I did. You could just share them out to your sales team and say, or and marketing team, hey, can we post this? And it could just be a quote. And one pro tip I'll say, per G2's regulation, you are supposed to get permission from the reviewer to reshare that review. However, I will say if you don't have that, or you don't have the information you necessarily need, you can say a reviewer from mid-market payroll software, or keep it vague, and then you're still able to use that testimonial without having to go through all the hoops.
Yeah. And I would also say on that note too, one of the other questions we ask during the reviews process or review collection process is, are you willing to be a reference for this customer or
Yeah,
for this product? And so in the back end of your My G2, you can see all of those customers who've said, yes, I'll be a reference. So that's a really great place to start in terms of finding reviews to use in campaigns like this. And those are the ones that will show up as options for your reference page and all that. So you don't, if they've checked that box, you don't have to get permission to use their reviews as is.
good call.
So that's a another like customer marketing cheat code. It's also like if you're starting an advocacy program, this is like side tangent and I won't spend much time here. And you're like, where do I start? Like, how do I find customers? That's often like another hidden treasure trove of customers who've one already said something publicly about you, and two have said, yeah, I'll be a reference for this customer. So like a captive audience of potential advocates that exist already. And if anyone has questions about how to find those, hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to walk you through it. So we have two other questions. We have some time, so if anyone has any others, feel free to drop those in. The first one here is, what do you suggest we do with reviews that are about to expire? And Anna, this is a really, sorry, the asker is also named Anna or Anna. Really great question. I think what people might not know is that reviews do decay over time, in terms of the our G2 algorithm. And so the reason for that is buyers, I think it's something like 85% of buyers say that reviews that are 3 months or were left 3 months or earlier, they don't consider those relevant anymore. And so we build our algorithm based on what we know buyers want and what they're asking us for. And so that factors into it. So your reviews, they don't like totally expire, but they do decay in value in terms of your ranking and where you stack up. So my recommendation is ask those customers to leave you an updated review. Chances are it's been, maybe 6 months, maybe a year since they first left you that review. If they're an active customer, their experience may have changed, or they may be able to add more context to the original review, especially if you're doing things like asking after onboarding or asking at renewal. Checking back in with those customers, asking them to update the review, it sort of refreshes it in terms of the review recency piece. Yeah. And so it doesn't come up as like a net new review, but you'll be able to see like this is the review that was originally left, this is their update, and it sort of re-energizes it in terms of the review. The next question here is it possible to hide or block reviews that are hurting our campaign from showing up? And the answer is no. That's something that we take really seriously at G2 is authenticity. We want to make sure that we're providing the best experience for people who are coming to G2. It's how we protect our legitimacy in the market. It's how we continue to be like a trusted partner, both for our vendors, but also for our buyers. It's why those trust badges mean so much. So they're like, unless it's something like horribly offensive, which honestly, usually those don't make it to G2 anyway. We do have a moderation team that looks at every single review. That one will, like, they will show up. It's really hard to get that removed if it's a legitimate customer review. I think this is the same person that said, what happens if we report a review? So if you report a review, it does go back to our moderation team. You leave a reason for why you reported that. So if it is something where like one of your competitors left you a negative review, or it's a spam bot that left a review or something like that, again, those usually get caught in our moderation process, but things do happen. If you report that review, someone from our moderation team will review it and make sure that it's legitimate. And if they find out that it's not, then they will remove that review. But you can't like you can't hide or block something just because it's a negative review. If it's a legitimate customer concern, if it's something where like you're receiving a negative review and you don't know what to do about that, my recommendation is make sure you're replying to that customer. We have a whole course in our G2 University on how to respond to reviews, and we have a whole section on how to respond to negative reviews. But that is a really great way, one, to let that customer know, like, hey, we heard your feedback. Sorry to hear that was your experience. Here's what we've done to fix, you know, anything maybe they've mentioned in that review, or here's what we want to learn more from you. That is a great opportunity, one, to engage with that customer, but two, for prospects who are visiting your profile to see like, wow, they take customer feedback seriously and they've addressed it. So that would be my recommendation there.
I love that. And I also kind of like taking the playful approach that we've seen some folks do of like the mean tweets, like reading videos, or obviously you have to do it tastefully. You don't want to like call anyone out, but especially if they're not true. I think it's kind of funny when people are so gripey.
Awesome. So there is one here. It says, we've had some issues with reviews from people who aren't customers. Is there a way we can disable those reviews? That one, so I know someone's asking questions anonymously. I would love for you to reach out to me and I can help you troubleshoot this on the back end. But reporting those reviews really is the best way. And putting that as the reason will help make sure that our moderation team knows that something's going on there. So please reach out to us or to your CSM or account manager, and we can help you troubleshoot this. Yeah, Andrew, great advice. He said, make sure you don't put your incentivized review link on a blog or a public page. That attracts scammers. I know. I'm hoping, Andrew, it wasn't too bad of an experience, but yeah, unfortunately, we do see that sometimes where people are like, oh, I just want the gift card, and they see the link posted publicly. That's why you might have noticed like all of those examples that we shared were places where you know your customers are. So being making sure you're getting those legitimate reviews it starts with like only putting those asks in those places. The last question here is, can you show us where a reviewer has signed up to be a reference in G2? So yes, that's actually very easy. Give me 1 second here. All right. So this is, can you all see my screen? Are you seeing the right thing? Cool. This is the back end of my G2 for us. So over here, I'm going to click under review management and then references from reviews. And so I can see everyone who in the last 6 months has said, yes, I'm willing to be a reference for you. You can do 1 year, the last 30 days. I guess we need to do more in terms of collecting reviews, custom. And then like when you go here, you can also download these as a CSV. So you have their information, or this is how you can add those to a reference page there. Few more minutes here and we've got a lot of questions. What exactly does being a reference entail? Honestly, the only thing we ask is, would you be willing to be a reference? They just check a box, yes or no. So you as a user can sort of decide what do you want that to entail. Right now, from like a G2 standpoint, the only thing that does is it agrees that we can share their information with you as our customer, and that you can leverage their review content as is in materials. So there's not like, now they have to be part of your advocacy program. It's very specific to being a reference on G2. So I always say, like, if you want to take those people and engage with them further, it's an opportunity to invite them to your advocacy program or, participate in a case study, whatever that might look like. Wow, lots of really great questions. Thanks,
I
everyone.
know.
The people who signed up to share the reviews, will they automatically populate as ones to include on the reference page? And yes, so just like you saw there, there's that like little button that you can click yes, add. And I think it also works backwards. Like if you go to create a reference page, that's what populates.
Yeah.
Ooh, Andrew, good question. Is it
I
possible to get
know.
typos corrected in a review? Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do from a G2 perspective because we won't edit customer content. That's like part of our agreement. But you can ask that customer to update their review. So if it's someone or who that customer is who left it, like I've just sent a like, hey, we'd love to use this. Is there any chance you can update this title? That's usually the best way. It doesn't always work. And then in those cases, it's like, well, oh, they misspelled the name of the product. Never mind. I was going to say, like, sometimes typos they add to the authenticity. Like it feels more real and like not a piece of marketing content, but the product name is pretty bad. Yeah, I would just ask them to update it if you could. Okay. Last question here. Reviews aren't the only way to help a company's ranking in the category, right? So how else could we boost our ranking? I don't know, Anna, if you want to take this or you want me to.
Um, I'd say traffic to your profile, so continually driving folks there is a really good way. And then Caitlin spoke to this, but like review volume, review recency. We have a ton of documentation on like the algorithm and what all goes into market presence, and satisfaction scores and how those impact that. And I can share that. But I'd say generally reviews and traffic are the way to boost that.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, reviews aren't the only thing, but they are definitely the most important thing, like the heaviest weighted. Um, and exactly what Anna said about review recency and volume are weighted pretty heavy in that algorithm as well. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. This was such a great conversation. And if you have any other questions or there's anything else we can help with, please reach out to us. We can drop our LinkedIn. LinkedIn's in the chat here. And then final things. I mentioned this before, but we also have on-demand learning in G2 University. Would love to have you take some of those courses. And then if you enjoyed this session, we do these monthly on timely topics across the board of how to better leverage customer voice, G2 products, how to, tips to start the new year, how to clean up your profile, things like that. So we'd love to see you again at a future episode. And then finally, I told you about it at the beginning. We'd love to hear from you. So like I said, Erin and I are responsible for our own G2 reviews and would love to get your feedback there. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everybody. And I hope we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.